Hey everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. So we have the first session of conference down, and I just wanted to go over the things that I noticed, and I would really appreciate it if you put down in the comments whatever you noticed as well, and I'll probably bring those up in the next video. I thought it was pretty good. I feel like I kind of picked up on a theme, and just let me know what you think. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you end up liking it, hit the notification bell, and again, leave your comments. I would love to hear what you think, what you heard. And then in the months that follow, we'll do deep dives into all these talks and check out the footnotes and see what else we can pull out. So what I noticed, okay, so it started off with President Eyring, and the thing that I noticed there is that he mentioned the death of Elder Davies. And if you've been watching my channel, I did a video when that happened, because I think it was at the end of August. He died, I believe, on a Tuesday, and then the next day was the 31st, and then the next day was October 1st. And he was, I guess his home is in North Salt Lake. The city of North Salt Lake. And so 2 days after he passed away, there was a tornado in North Salt Lake. And it took the typical path that tornadoes do in the northern hemisphere, where it traveled from southwest to northeast, and so it kind of made its way toward the mountain, and I guess you could kind of say in the direction of the Bountiful Temple, which is up there. I don't know. Do you remember any other time that? Because I guess when he passed away, he was a 70, and he had been in the presiding bishopric at one point. But do you remember any other time when a 70 was mentioned in General Conference for having passed away? Because we have a lot of them, right? I mean, there's a lot of 70s, and I'm not going to say that it's never happened before. I just don't remember. But in this conference, they made note of that. And then, like I said, there was a tornado that happened 2 days after he passed away. And tornadoes, they're not. There's about, on average, there's 2 a year, based on what I researched in Utah, but not in the valley. Or not. Well, North Salt Lake isn't in the valley, but along the Wasatch Front, where the majority of Utah's population is, you don't typically have tornadoes in those areas. And this tornado came 22 years after the downtown Salt Lake tornado in 1999, which I also think was a special event. I'll link all those videos in the description below, because, you may just think that it's coincidence, but I think that these tornadoes actually mean something, and maybe something was going on with Elder Davies. I don't know. Maybe it was some kind of, I don't know. But it seems like it was a important or a special event in my mind, okay? So after that, we went on to President Nelson. He talked about how the format of General Conference has changed over the years, and I think he was saying that in the context of just how conference has been different for the last several times because of COVID, but I don't know if he's like hinting to any changes in the future. We know that there's been changes to the General Conference priesthood session and all that stuff, so I don't know. That may not mean anything. He told us to focus on 3 things as we move forward into this conference. He advised us to look for pure truth, pure doctrine of Christ, and pure revelation. I find that interesting, because just with the word pure, that already piques my interest. Because it brings my mind to Zion, right? Because Zion is the pure in heart. And so if you're looking for pure truth, pure doctrine of Christ, pure revelation, you're probably going to take those things into a pure heart, hopefully. And we're going to try and build up Zion even more. But I don't know, just like the way that he was talking this time, it seemed pretty interesting to me, like just the tone and and what he said. He also used the word unforgettable again, and this time, he was. I don't think he was necessarily saying that, this conference will be unforgettable the same way that he said that for the April 2020 General Conference, but he did say that again, and he said it in the context of this conference and receiving revelation, that the revelation that we can receive during this conference will be unforgettable. And I don't know. I think that this is going to be somewhat of a special conference. That's the vibe that I'm getting from it. He also used the term hasten his work in his time, talking about the Lord hastening his work. Like, how many times do they have to say it before we start believing that really things are speeding up? The second coming really is at the door. It's the prophet himself that's saying this, and he's been saying it in many different ways with different phrases. We got hastening his work. We're in the latter part of the last days. True millennials. By the way, I've done videos on all these things. That the millennials are, in his opinion, true millennials. Talking about how the church is at a hinge point. And then he keeps talking about the second coming in preparation and gathering scattered Israel in preparation for the second coming. It's happening, okay? It's happening. It's happening. And it's happening sooner than I think a lot of people want to admit. Okay, now right after that, we had Jeffrey R. Holland. And I want to point out a comment that somebody already made on one of my other videos. This is from Carissa Sanders. And she believes that she was my 12th subscriber. So she's been in it since the beginning. And I appreciate that, Carissa. Carissa is my, that's the same name that one of my in-laws has. So I have a fondness for that name. Okay, so Carissa says, okay, I have to say that I'm so happy and not at all surprised that they had Elder Holland speak first, second to only the prophet. I feel like it's their way of saying that they stand fully and unapologetically behind Elder Holland. Okay, so if you don't know what she's referring to with that, this year, between this conference and last conference, Elder Holland gave his speech to BYU, to the faculty and people that work there, and he talked about how BYU has been going kind of astray and actually becoming hostile toward the church, and with certain groups of people that didn't go over so well. I've done videos about that too. I've done multiple videos about what happened because I thought that was just like a bombshell. It had been, this problem had been growing for years and years at BYU, and then finally they addressed it, and they had President Holland. He was the one to give those remarks, and it made me a little bit queasy because when you read that talk, he essentially, in a very Christ-like way, threatened their funding and threatened people's jobs. If they were going to continue to be hostile toward the church and promote things against the doctrine of the church, that they could make changes, both with money and with associations. So, I think Chris is right. I think that they intentionally had him be the second speaker of conference. They are behind him. And it's interesting because as you go on through these talks, they basically back up what he said. He wasn't attacking anybody. He was just saying, hey, we are the church, and BYU, you are a church school, and you're supposed to be defending church doctrines. That's part of your mission, and you're supposed to be unique among schools because you are a church school. So that's interesting. Elder Holland talked about being all in, right, when it comes to the church, like not having, now these are my own words, not having like our pet sins or things that are against the church that we kind of nurture, that we need to be all in when it comes to the doctrine of Christ. That's the point of what we're doing. We are all supposed to overcome our natural man, whatever it is that the natural man wants to do, and completely turn around from those ways and become born again in Christ, right? And that's what we do at baptism. We commit ourselves to Christ and being called by his name and keeping his commandments. And that's without any exception at all. Now, the interesting thing about this talk is he goes on to talk about, he referenced after Christ came in the Book of Mormon, how after that, essentially, you had no contention in all the land, and there cannot be a happier people among all the children of God. I think a lot of people understand that to mean that that's like a foreshadowing of Zion. It's a foreshadowing of the millennium, when we're going to have a Zion people that are all pure of heart, of one mind. And he goes on to talk about avoiding contention. Let's see, the love of God was in their heart, was in the hearts of the people. And then we're supposed to have one transcendent identity, all the children of Christ. So now the whole thing with avoiding contention, I had pointed that out in it was the September Liahona. Elder Gong did a article about building up Zion. And I've seen not just him, but other people talk about how we've got to get rid of contention among ourselves. If we're to become a Zion people and of one heart and one mind, we can't have divisions among us. And so it looks like they're trying to hammer that home even more with this talk that Gerrit Holland gave. Avoiding contention is going to be key to creating a Zion. And it's interesting because I don't think during the talk he mentioned Zion by name, but clearly that's what he's talking about, which is interesting in itself, because Zion, that's a millennial theme, right? You've had Zion whenever you've had people like the Nephites, but we know that one of the main themes of the second coming is building up Zion here on earth, and then being joined by Zion from above when the city of Enoch comes back. So I think it's noteworthy that he was essentially talking about Zion and how to achieve it. After that, we had Bonnie H. Corden, and what I got from her was she mentioned distractions, and I've done videos about that recently as well. We have too many people that are being distracted by just the things of this world and not focusing on where we're at, what we're supposed to be doing. And she used the example of, I think it was her grandson who was goalie and he got caught in the net. And he wasn't paying attention to the game. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of people right now. There's so many things that you can get into. We have video games, we have movies, we have the internet, and everything that we can do on the internet, and just there's so many things that can derail us from what's important. And she mentioned gathering scattered Israel. That should be everybody's primary objective. Like, once of course, the primary objective is to find Christ and become baptized, but like once you're past that point, the main mission right now is to gather scattered Israel in preparation for the second coming, which, according to the prophet, the Lord is hastening his work for that. Let's see. Ulysses Soares, he talked about having empathy, compassion, but he also mentioned not performing hollow acts, as in like doing good things but not doing them for the right reason, right? Or trying to look holy when you're not really inside. You're persecuting people. Basically, he's talking about narcissists, people like religious narcissists that, they know what to do in order to look like they're a religious person or a member of the church, but they don't do it for the right reasons. And sometimes they weaponize the gospel to make intentionally to make people feel bad and to lift themselves up and put others down, right? So he talked about that. He talked about not judging and just how we can't really know um, all the many factors that make up a person and why a person is the way that they are. That only Christ himself and the Father are able to judge that. But interestingly, after that, so we can't, right? And that doesn't mean that we don't speak truth or we don't back up doctrine. It's just that you shouldn't go to somebody and make them feel bad, but it is completely appropriate to affirm what is truth and what the commandments are, right? And again, I think that just is mostly advice to narcissistic people or even just regular people that in that moment are acting narcissistically and trying to hurt somebody, or they're more concerned about their own status, and by shaming somebody else, that it puts them down and lifts themselves up. So we gotta avoid that. Just focus on ourselves. Make sure that we are pure in heart and that we are Zion. So anyway, but then after that we had D. Todd Christofferson, and he talked about this prevailing kind of argument right now that the Savior loves me just as I am, and that means that I don't need to change. That's what a lot of people are trying to preach right now. And I saw someone that was an LDS YouTuber who fell away from the church, and this person said this exact thing, like how they were sorry for saying that certain things were wrong. And that's wrong, right? Like, no, there is right and there is wrong, and it's transcendental and it's for the entire universe. There's universal, meaning the entirety of reality. There are truths, and there is right and there is wrong. And he highlighted the fact that no unclean thing can enter into the kingdom, and that the tiniest flaw in a building can potentially bring the entire thing down, right? And that's kind of interesting, because you think back to what happened this year in Surfside, Florida. That's where you had the Champlain Towers that collapsed, or the tower that collapsed. And the mainstream story and reason for that is because that there was like a flaw in the engineering, or that I didn't get too deep into it, but I do have my questions about what actually happened. But in any case, you had this year a building that actually collapsed, supposedly because of a flaw in its engineering. And that just gives you a visual for what he's talking about right here, how the Lord, he does love everybody perfectly. And I think because of that, he gives commandments, because he knows the way to gain fullness of joy, how to become perfectly happy. And we are imperfect people. We think that we know what's best for us, but if we follow his guidance and his commandments, we will actually become the happiest that you can possibly be. And but he can't permit any iniquity, any sin, any unclean thing into his presence. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't love you. And these are some of the things that a lot of Latter-day Saints, I think, are forgetting. It's like they're being taught by the world that love means you just accept everybody no matter what they do. Everyone's imperfect, you're imperfect, and therefore you need to just like not say that anyone does anything wrong, and you need to fully embrace that person, and you need to fight for their cause, so that they can And no, the God has given clear guidance on the way that we are to live our lives, and what is sin, and what is right, and what is wrong. And if we love these people, we will try and be an example ourselves. We aren't going to be antagonistic toward them. We're going to love them, but we're also not going to advocate for whatever it is that they're doing that is against God's commandments. After that, we had one of the 70s speak. It was Clark G. Gilbert, and he addressed the whole idea of, essentially privilege, right? Because that's another thing that the world is really hammering on right now. How, there certain people are privileged, and so those people need to be brought down and equalized, and other people need to be raised up, and we need to say sorry for things that happened hundreds of years ago that you may not have been involved in at all, like your family may not have been involved in at all. And just how he said, you need to, if you start out poor in life, you start out with bad circumstances, you need to, not stay there. Improve your circumstances the best you can. And I know, and that there's people that do that. And then if you're someone that starts out life well, I guess whether spiritually or temporally, don't fall into the trap of stagnation, and don't just think, oh, well, I'm here. And I think that that's actually a problem in Utah. I've talked about it before. These areas where there's large populations of members, right? Utah, Mesa, Arizona, places like that, Idaho, where you have so many Latter-day Saints, and it's easy just to kind of like take for granted that you live in that kind of community, and then you stagnate. You don't try to improve. You have like a kind of a false sense of security because there's so many members of the church around you that you yourself just kind of like let that become your normal life, and you don't really give it much thought. No, you need to not stagnate, not plateau. You need to continue to grow and improve. And I would recommend moving out of those places because there's people out there that could probably use your example and use your testimony. I know, sorry, I don't mean to sound like a broken record because I've already mentioned this several times on my channel, but moving here to Kansas, because I'm originally from Salt Lake, we moved down to Phoenix, and then we moved over to Fort Hood, Texas when I was in the Army, back to Phoenix, and then now here in Kansas. And it really is valuable having me and my family here, because we're making associations with all these people here in this small town and the surrounding areas that don't have any experience talking to someone that's a member of the church. And I think that we're doing good. There hasn't been anybody that's been baptized yet, but it seems like there has been interest, and it wouldn't have happened unless we moved here. So, so just be careful not to take for granted what you have, both temporally and spiritually. Make sure to always continue to grow. And, and then after that, I wasn't able to watch, or at least I wasn't able to take notes on everything else that was said after Clark G. Gilbert. So if you have any thoughts about what President Oaks said, or the other guy was Patricio. I didn't get his name. I didn't remember his name. But yeah, I think that this is already a pretty good conference. I kind of like what feels like the prevailing theme of just building a Zion, avoiding contention, taking on these worldly philosophies that are creeping into the church, and hopefully people are paying attention to what our general authorities are saying. And I guess we'll see what else they're going to talk about coming up here pretty soon. So yeah, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Hit the notification bell. Leave your comments. I'll make sure to bring those up. I may not be able to get to all of them. It depends on how many there are, but I'll try and bring it up in the next video. I plan to do another video after the next session, and I'll talk to you guys later.